The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, while Dr. Keira Johnson was knee-deep in census records from 1870. Her office in Atlanta was a quiet chaos of document boxes, dual computer monitors glowing with DNA helix graphics, and a large map of the antebellum South dotted with colored pins. Keira, her dark hair pulled into a messy but functional bun, sighed and stretched the stiffness from her shoulders. Forensic genealogy was equal parts detective work, therapy, and archaeology. Most of her clients were black families, seeking the roots that slavery had severed. So, the email from the Whitlock Family Heritage Foundation was a surprise. Dear Dr. Johnson, your reputation for rigorous and ethical genealogical research precedes you. The Whitlock family, stewards of the historic Silver Oak Plantation in Cypress, Georgia, are embarking on a groundbreaking initiative. We seek to move beyond the simplistic narratives of the past to a full, transparent accounting of our lineage and all its complexities. We wish to commission you to create the definitive genealogical history of the Whitlock line, with particular attention to entangled branches. Money is no object. We are prepared for truth. It was signed by Eleanor Maria Whitlock, chairwoman of the foundation. Keira leaned back in her chair, the leather creaking. A white plantation family hiring her, a black genealogist known for picking at the scabs of history to dig into their entangled branches. That was code. It was an admission, wrapped in fancy language. They knew they were black wit, and for a family like that, with old money and a historic estate that was now a museum, this was either remarkably progressive or deeply suspicious. Her assistant, Leo, poked his head in. More coffee, boss. I might need something stronger. Leo, read this. He scanned the email and let out a low whistle. The Silver Oak they're like Georgia royalty. That's a minefield. A gilded, centuries-old minefield. That's what I'm thinking, Keira said, tapping a pen against her lips. But prepared for truth. That's what they all say, until the truth shows up, holding a receipt. The fee they're offering could fund the non-profit arm for 2 years, Leo said. Ever the pragmatist, he had a point. Keira looked out her window at the Atlanta skyline. This kind of money meant she could help dozens more families find their ancestors, for free. It also meant walking into the lion's den. But what if? What if this was real? What if a major plantation family was actually ready to face the music? The historian in her was wildly curious. The descendant of enslaved people in her was deeply, profoundly wary. Schedule a video call with Ms. Whitlock, Keira said finally. Let's see the whites of their eyes. 2 days later, Eleanor Whitlock's face filled Keira's screen. She was in her early 50s, with the careful, understated elegance of old Mania, cashmere sweater, pearls, fine lines around eyes that were a sharp, intelligent blue. But she looked tired. Dr. Johnson, thank you for your time, Eleanor began. Her voice a soft Georgia accent, smoothed by education. I imagine our request seems unconventional. It's certainly unique. Ms. Whitlock, Keira replied, keeping her tone professional, neutral. Please, call me Eleanor. I've read your work. Your methodology on the Carter Project, linking the diaspora through bill of sale records and mitochondrial DNA. It was breathtaking. She paused, choosing her words. My family has told stories about itself for 200 years. Heroic founders, noble officers, benevolent landowners. The museum tour at Silver Oak is, well, it's a fairy tale. I've been chairwoman for 5 years, and every day the disconnect between that fairy tale and the sheer, brutal arithmetic of slavery sickens me. Keira remained silent, letting her talk. I have children. Dr. Johnson, a daughter at UGA. I don't want them to inherit a lie. I want them to inherit responsibility. But I can't fix what I don't fully understand. The entangled branches, I know they exist. I've seen hints in old letters, whispers. I want you to find them, map them, name them, no matter where it leads. The foundation board has approved a blank check for this. The board is fully supportive, Keira asked, skepticism creeping in. A flicker of tension crossed Eleanor's face. Mostly, my uncle, Senator Whitlock, believes it's a risk managed through controlled transparency. Others are less enthusiastic, but I hold the majority vote. This will happen. Keira studied her. The woman seemed sincere, driven, even, but she was still a Whitlock in a mansion built by forced labor. The trust would have to be earned. My terms are non-negotiable, Keira said. I control the research. Full access to all family records, public and private. I publish my findings, in full. delivered to you first, but ultimately for the historical record. No censorship, and my team includes a community liaison from Cypress County. Eleanor didn't hesitate. Agreed. All of it. When can you start? The deal was struck. As the call ended, Keira felt a familiar thrill, the beginning of a historical hunt, but beneath it was a cold ripple of foreboding. Families like the Whitlocks didn't survive for centuries by accident. They survived by knowing where the bodies were buried, and by making sure they stayed that way. She was being hired to dig. The question was, what would she be allowed to find, and what would happen when she found it? Silver Oak Plantation was a postcard of Southern Gothic beauty, which immediately put Keira on edge. A week later, her car crunched up the long white gravel drive lined with ancient, weeping live oaks draped in ghostly Spanish moss. At the end stood the house, a towering monument of white columns, red brick, and sprawling verandas. It was pristine, preserved in amber. The air was thick with the scent of magnolia and damp earth. It was beautiful, and to Keira, it felt like a stage set. Eleanor greeted her on the steps, looking more approachable in jeans and boots. "Welcome to Silver Oak, Dr. Johnson." "Keira, please." "Keira, come, I'll show you to the archives. They're in the old library." The interior was cool, dim, and smelled of lemon polish and old paper. Portraits of stern-looking men and placid women in silk gowns watched them pass. Eleanor led her to a heavy oak door and unlocked it. The room beyond was a historian's dream, floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with ledgers, document boxes, and leather-bound books. A massive mahogany table sat in the center. "This is everything we've managed to gather from attics, bank vaults, and distant cousins," Eleanor said, waving a hand. "Plantation records, personal correspondence, farm journals from 1798 onward. Overwhelming." "It's perfect," Keira said, her eyes already scanning shelf labels. "I'll start with the property and business ledgers. They often tell a clearer story than the personal papers." Eleanor nodded. "I'll leave you to it. My office is in the West Wing, if you need anything." She paused at the door. "And Keira, thank you." Alone, Keira put on her white cotton gloves. She started with the heaviest ledgers, the ones labeled property and chattel. 1822–1865. She began photographing each page with a high-resolution camera, her process methodical. The ledgers were a chillingly mundane record of atrocity. Lists of human beings, their prices, their ages, their skills. Prime field hand: Adam, $900. Woman, Sarah, and child, Lucy, $1200. Boy, Thomas, $10.400. Then she opened the ledger for 1845 to 1855. The entries were similar at first, but as she neared the late 1840s, she saw a change. In the births column, instead of a name, she started seeing initials. CV. It appeared first in 1847. Birth, mother, Sarah. Child, CV male. She flipped the page. 1848. Birth mother, Lucille. Child, CV female. Then another, and another. Between 1847 and 1852, she counted 11 births marked CV. In the notes column next to these entries, a single, cryptic word: covenant. Her heart began to pound. CV covenant vessels. She cross-referenced with the deaths ledger. None of the CV children were listed as dying in infancy, which was statistically unusual, but they also weren't listed in later censuses among the enslaved population at Silver Oak. It was as if these 11 children had vanished. She pulled out her laptop and opened the digitized federal census for 1850. For Cypress County, she found the Whitlock household: Eleanor Nell Whitlock, widow, 48, her sons, William, 22, and James, 19, and then 87 enslaved individuals, listed by age, sex, and color, but not by name. She scanned the ages. There was a cluster of children, ages 3 to 1, that fit, but were they the CV children? There was no way to tell. Frustrated, she turned to the personal papers. She found the diary of Eleanor Nell Caldwell Whitlock, the matriarch of that era. The volume for 1847 was slim. She opened it. The handwriting was firm, upright, devoid of flourish. January 12, 1847. William remains dissolute. James is weak, his mind on poetry and nonsense. The estate is a weight upon my shoulders alone. The new lot from Charleston are robust, but insubordinate. A solution must be found. A lasting covenant. February 3, 1847. Spoke with Reverend Hughes on the spiritual management of chattel. He speaks of stewardship. I think of capital. Blood is the strongest chain. It is time to forge a new kind of chain. The entries were cold, strategic, and deeply unsettling. They spoke of a design and a program, but the details were vague. Then, near the end of the 1847 diary, she found it. A single, pressed oak leaf, and beneath where it had been, faint indentations on the paper. Keira grabbed a forensic tool from her kit, an oblique angle light. She shone it across the page. The indentations from a missing page torn out became visible. She carefully took a graphite rubbing. Letters emerged, a fragment of a sentence. The boys will do their duty. The selected women are prepared. The covenant begins. God forgive me, but this will save Silver Oak. Keira sat back, the blood rushing in her ears. The ledger, the code, the diary. The cold, calculating mind of Nell Whitlock was reaching across the centuries. She wasn't just running a plantation. She was conducting an experiment, and Keira had just found the lab notes. A week later, back in her Atlanta lab, the data was telling a story no ledger could ever hide. Keira had uploaded the genetic data she'd been building for years, samples from African Americans, seeking their roots into a new analysis. She was looking for the Whitlock Y chromosome haplogroup, a genetic signature passed essentially unchanged from father to son. She had a sample from a living, male-line Whitlock descendant, provided, with permission, by a cooperative distant cousin of Eleanor. It gave her the genetic fingerprint. Her algorithm scanned thousands of profiles. It pinged, then pinged again, and again. A map on her screen lit up, not in England or Scotland where the Whitlocks claimed origin, but in West Africa, and the clusters weren't random. They were linked to specific regions in Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama. Dozens of living African American men carried the Whitlock Y chromosome. That, in itself, was the oldest, darkest story of the South. White slave owners fathering children with enslaved women. It was tragic, brutal, and commonplace. But Keira's trained eye saw a pattern within the pattern. She isolated the matches that were strongest, the most direct lines. She then looked at their autosomal DNA, the mix from all ancestors, and she looked at their mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to child. The expected pattern for random, opportunistic sexual violence would be diverse mitochondrial DNA. Different enslaved mothers would, she saw, was different. The men with the strongest Whitlock Y chromosome signal had different mitochondrial DNA. That was normal. But their autosomal DNA showed a startlingly high percentage of shared Whitlock ancestry across all chromosomes, not just the 1 to 2% you might see from a single ancestor 5 generations back. We're talking 8%, 12%, even 15% in some cases. Leo, Keira said, her voice tight. Look at this. He leaned over her shoulder. Whoa, that's not a one-off thing. That's like multiple, concentrated points of ancestry infusion. Exactly, Keira whispered. It's not one white ancestor. It's several, closely related, over a concentrated period. And look at the timeline estimates from the DNA recombination. She ran a calculation. The most significant introductions of Whitlock DNA into these lines cluster between 1845 and 1860. The ledger dates the CV births. It was systematic, Leo said, horror dawning on his face. They weren't just having kids, they were breeding them. The word hung in the sterile modern lab air, a vile anachronism, but the double helix on the screen confirmed it. Nell Whitlock's covenant wasn't just a metaphor, it was a deliberate, multi-generational breeding program, using her own sons as sires. Keira felt a nausea that was both professional and deeply personal. This was the cold, biological truth beneath the horror. Human beings reduced to genetic stock, a crime recorded not just in ink, but in the very bloodlines of the living. Her phone buzzed. It was Eleanor. Keira, I need to see you. At Silver Oak something's happened. What is it? Someone broke into the archive last night. They didn't take anything, but they left something on the table. What did they leave? Eleanor's voice was a shaky whisper. A modern DNA test kit, and a note. It said, "Stop digging. The Covenant protects its own." The drive back to Silver Oak felt different. The majestic oaks now seemed like sentinels for a secret. The manicured gardens felt like a beautiful mask. Eleanor met Keira at the archive door. Her calm, professional demeanor was gone, replaced by a pale, raw anxiety. She wordlessly handed Keira a single sheet of plain printer paper inside. A clear plastic sleeve. The message was typed in a generic font. "Stop digging. The Covenant protects its own." Beneath it, on the table, sat an unopened DNA testing kit from a popular consumer company. The security system was disabled, Eleanor said, her voice hollow. Not hacked, just the power to the sensors was cut at the external box. They knew what they were doing. They took nothing, just left this. Keira examined the note through the plastic. It's a threat, but a specific one. They're not denying the covenant. They're invoking it. They're saying it's still active. She looked at Eleanor. Who else has access to the archives? The board members have keys. The museum director, the head of grounds, a list of about 10 people, including your uncle, Senator Whitlock. Eleanor's hesitation was answer enough. He has a key, but he wouldn't, not like this. He's a politician. He'd call a meeting, issue a lawsuit, use pressure. This is crude, or it's meant to look crude, Keira countered, to scare us off with generic thuggery, while the real power stays clean. She picked up the DNA kit. This is the real message. They're telling us they know how we're digging. They're in the modern world, not just hiding in old ledgers. The violation changed everything. The intellectual puzzle was now a physical danger. Keira felt a spike of fear, quickly overridden by a colder, more stubborn resolve. Someone was afraid of what she was finding. That meant she was on the right track. We need security, and we need to accelerate the research, Keira said. I want to bring in my community liaison now. Today, Eleanor nodded, looking grateful for a directive. Who is it? Reverend Hannah Mills. She runs the Cypress County Historical Society, the Black Historical Society. Her family's been here since Reconstruction. If anyone knows the local stories, the ones not written down, it's her. Reverend Hannah Mills arrived in a pickup truck, a woman in her late 60s with a formidable presence, her hair in silver locks, her eyes missing nothing. She greeted Eleanor with a polite, measured nod, and shook Keira's hand with firm warmth. Dr. Johnson, read your paper on the Baptist Church Network as Freedom Trail. Good work. Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate you coming on short notice. Hannah looked around the grand entry hall of silver oak, her expression unreadable. Spent my whole life looking at this place from the outside. Never had much cause to come in. She turned to Eleanor. Grandmother once had my grandmother fired from her job at the pharmacy for insolence, which meant she asked for her correct pay. Eleanor flushed. I am deeply sorry for that. For all of it. Your sorrow don't feed my grandmother's ghost, Hannah said, not unkindly, but with immense gravity. But your actions might. Keira says, you're seeking truth. I'm here to witness, and to make sure the truth that's found isn't just the Whitlock family's version of it. In the archive, Keira laid out her findings, the CV entries, Nell's diary fragment, the DNA results. Hannah listened silently, her face a mask of granite. When Keira finished, Hannah closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, they were glistening with a fury held in perfect check. Covenant, she whispered, the word tasting of ash. They called it a covenant. She looked at Keira. You know what my great-grandmother called it? The special duty, passed down in my family as a warning. Beware the special duty. She said it was why some of us looked different, why some were kept closer to the big house, taught to read even when it was forbidden, but were watched every second. It wasn't kindness. It was farming. Keira's breath caught. Do you have any records? Family stories with names. Names were the first thing they took, Hannah said. But we have other things. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to a photo. It was a quilt, intricately stitched. My great-great-grandmother, Sarah, made this, passed to her daughter, and down to me. See these symbols. She pointed to a series of angular, geometric patterns mixed with traditional motifs. Family law says it's a record, a birth record. Keira leaned in. Among the stitches were sequences of knots and patterns. It's a code. We always thought it was just family memory. But you've got the dates. Hannah's finger traced a specific cluster of knots. This pattern here means born under the oak, and this one means father's blood is the master's blood. She looked up, meeting Keira's eyes. Sarah had a son in 1847, named him Benjamin. She was one of the selected women, wasn't she? The room went still. The ledger entry flashed in Keira's mind. Birth, mother, Sarah, child, CV male. History had just stepped out of the pages and into the room, wearing the face of Reverend Hannah Mills. Yes, Keira said, her voice soft. She was. Hannah nodded slowly, absorbing the confirmation of a nightmare a century and a half old. Then let's find the rest of them, she said, her voice steely. Let's find all Sarah's children. and let's tell the world what their special duty really was. Excerpt from the recovered diary of Eleanor Nell Caldwell Whitlock, April 15, 1847. The design is settled. Dr. Metcalf from Savannah confirms it is sound in principle. Selective breeding produces superior stock in horses, cattle, dogs. Why not? In man, the Africans have strength and endurance, but lack discipline and the higher faculties. My own bloodline has intellect and command, but is grown thin, prone to weakness and vice. William is resistant. He sees only the base utility of it. I have made him understand it is his duty to the family. To Silver Oak, he will comply. James weeps. He is a disappointment, but his blood is pure. He, too, will do his duty. His sentiment can be managed. I have selected the first 3 women. Sarah, from the Igbo region, intelligent and strong-hipped. Lucille, young and healthy. Martha, obedient. They have been moved to the isolated cottage by the old creek. It is clean. They will be well fed. They will bear my grandchildren. This is not sin. This is stewardship. This is the forging of a new, loyal caste, bound to this land by the very blood in their veins, yet forever conscious that their privilege flows from us. A perfect, self-perpetuating order. I shall call it the Silver Oak Covenant. May 30th, 1847. William performed his duty with Sarah last night. He reported it as a distasteful chore. I reminded him that a gardener does not weep for the dirt. James is to be with Lucille tonight. I have given him a dose of laudanum to steady his nerves. The women understand the alternative is the sugar fields of Louisiana. They are compliant. November 3rd, 1847. Sarah has quickened. Dr. Metcalf examined her. A strong pregnancy. He is intrigued by the project. Speaks of documenting the results. I have promised him access for a discreet share of any future proceeds. The covenant may yet yield more than just obedient servants. December 24th, 1847. A son born to Sarah this evening. A vigorous, loud child. Dark, but with the unmistakable shape to the eyes that is all Whitlock. She wished to name him after her father. I have designated him Covenant Vessel 1. He will be called Benjamin, as she wishes, in private. But his true name is his function. He is the first link in the new chain. I held him. He did not cry. He looked at me with calm old eyes. It is begun. Back in the present, the quilt became their Rosetta Stone. With Hannah's deciphering, the knotted patterns began to match the CV entries. Each symbol cluster indicated a mother's name, a birth season, and a trait. Strong voice, quick hands. 2 souls twins. Keira cross-referenced it with the DNA databases. She began to find the descendants, not just the maline descendants carrying the Whitlock Y chromosome, but the entire sprawling family tree stemming from those 11 CV children. She found a retired teacher in Birmingham, a software engineer in Seattle, a poet in New York, a young mother in Atlanta. All of them, to varying degrees, carried the genetic markers of the covenant. She and Hannah decided to reach out, carefully, starting with the closest geographical match, Marcus Green, the community leader she'd previously identified. They met him at his office in a community center in a nearby town. Marcus was in his 50s, with a commanding presence, sharp eyes, and a cautious smile. He listened as Keira and Hannah laid out their findings, his expression growing increasingly still. When they finished, he steepled his fingers. My grandmother used to tell me, we're special. Our blood is tied to the land here. We have a responsibility. She'd say it like it was a prideful thing, but her eyes were sad. He took a deep breath. She said our name used to be different, not Green, but she wouldn't say what. Did she ever mention the covenant or special duty? Hannah asked gently. Marcus flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible recoil. Not those words. But she'd warn us about getting above our raising and remembering who made us. I thought she was talking about God. Now I think she was talking about the Whitlocks. He agreed to provide a DNA sample to confirm his link. As he swabbed his cheek, he looked at Keira. What do you want from me, Dr. Johnson? What's the endgame here? The truth, Keira said, and then restitution, a real accounting. Marcus gave a dry, humorless chuckle. Truth is a weapon, and you're about to hand it to a lot of people who've been taught their whole lives that the handle is meant to cut them. This is going to break things. Some things need breaking, Hannah said quietly. As they left, Keira's phone buzzed. It was Leo, back at her lab, his voice tense with excitement. Boss, I've been running the broader network analysis on the DNA data, looking at the other connections of the Covenant descendants. What did you find? It's not just isolated to Silver Oak. I'm finding the same genetic pattern, high concentration of a specific white paternal lineage among a closed black population on 2 other former plantation databases, smaller scale, but same time frame, mid-1800s, and get this, both those plantations were owned by cousins of the Whitlock. Nell was corresponding with them. Keira's blood ran cold. It wasn't just one woman's monstrous experiment, it was a network, a secret, shared atrocity among a cabal of wealthy families. The Covenant was bigger than she'd imagined, and if it was a network, then the modern-day effort to protect the secret would be networked too. The broken security sensor and the DNA kit weren't the work of a single, clumsy relative. They were a message from a system that was still very much alive. The revelation hung in the air of Keira's lab, dense and suffocating. Leo's discovery transformed a horrific family secret into something with the chilling architecture of an industry, a network. Keira repeated, staring at the map on Leo's screen. 3 pinpoints in Georgia, connected by thin digital red lines representing shared DNA patterns and correspondence records. She wasn't just a monster, she was a pioneer, a franchiser of evil. More like a consultant, Leo said, pulling up digitized letters from the University of Georgia's special collections. Look, letters from Nell Whitlock to her cousin, Alfred, Bishop of Magnolia Grove, dated 1851. He read aloud, translating the ornate script. My dear Alfred, your inquiry regarding the management of recalcitrant stock is what I have found that the principles of selective pairing, applied with firm purpose, yield not only more tractable laborers but a tangible improvement in the quality of the chattel itself. The initial outlay of care is repaid tenfold in durability and obedience. I can have my man Metcalf send you the protocols. Keira felt the nausea return. It was written with the detached practicality of a farmer discussing crop rotation. Metcalf, Dr. Metcalf, he's the key. The physician, he's the thread between these places. She turned to her own database. Search all plantation records, medical ledgers, anything with the name Metcalf, Silas, Reginald, on it, Leo said, his fingers flying. Hannah, who had been listening on speakerphone, spoke, her voice like ground glass. So they turned our grandmothers into broodmares and called it agriculture, and they had newsletters about it. We need to find a descendant of one of the other plantations, Keira said, thinking aloud. Someone who doesn't know. If we can show this was a pattern, it takes the focus off just the Whitlocks and makes it a systemic crime. It also proves the modern cover-up is bigger. It also makes you more of a threat, Hannah warned. You're not just poking a bear, Keira, you're poking the whole den. As if on cue, Keira's personal cell phone rang, a blocked number. She exchanged a look with Leo and answered. Dr. Johnson, a digitally altered voice, flat and robotic, filled her ear. The past is a closed book. Doctor, some bindings are sealed with more than glue. You are not a restorer. You are a vandal. CC's final warning. The line went dead. Keira put the phone down slowly. They're escalating. They know about the network search. How? Leo asked, paranoid eyes scanning the room. They must have alerts on the public archive accesses. Or they have someone on the inside at one of the institutions. She stood up, adrenaline sharpening her focus. We need to get to Silver Oak. I need to see the rest of Nell's papers. If she was corresponding about this, she kept records. And if she kept records, they might be hidden. Eleanor was waiting for them, her anxiety now hardened into a kind of grim resolve. The break-in had shattered any lingering illusion of a genteel historical exercise. I've installed new cameras, she said, leading them to the archive. Motion sensors, the data feeds to my phone, and a private security firm in Atlanta. No one gets in without me knowing. The archive felt different, now not a library, but a vault. Keira went straight to the collection of Nell's later diaries, the ones from the 1850s. The entries became less frequent, more triumphant, and even colder. June 1853. The first cohort is remarkable. Benjamin's CV1 reads at a level far beyond his years. The girls show exceptional dexterity. They are housed together, taught together. They understand their uniqueness, their debt. The covenant is not a chain of iron, but of blood. It is stronger. September 1855. Alfred writes that his first graduates are his most trusted house servants. He thanks me for the design. My legacy is secure. Then, an entry that stopped Keira's heart. January 1858. A complication CV5. Elijah, born to Lucille, has begun to ask questions. He has seen James in town and remarked on the resemblance. James, fool that he is, nearly acknowledged him. This cannot be. Sentiment is the worm in the apple. I have arranged for Elijah 12 to be apprenticed to a carpenter in Mobile. The mother, Lucille, will be sold to a planter in Texas. The bond must be one. They look to us. We must never, ever look back. The clinical cruelty of it was breathtaking. A child disappears. A mother is sold down the river, all to maintain the purity of the experiment. Hannah called from a corner where she was examining a box of non-paper artifacts. Look at this. It was a small, locked mahogany case, found at the back of a shelf. It wasn't labeled. Eleanor produced a ring of old keys, and after several tries, one clicked. The lid opened. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was not jewelry, but a set of precision medical instruments, silver scalpels, a bone saw, probes, and a small, leather-bound ledger tucked beside them. Keira lifted the ledger with trembling, gloved hands. It was Dr. Metcalfe's private journal. The entries were a horrifying companion. Piece to Nell's, detailed anatomical observations of the mothers and children, notes on predictable Mendelian inheritance of traits, charts tracking height, weight, dental development, and psychological pliability in the Covenant children versus the field stock. And at the back, financial records, payments from Nell Whitlock, payments from Alfred Bishop, a list of other surnames, planters from across the South who had paid for consultation and breeding protocols. My God, Eleanor breathed, her hand over her mouth. They were selling this. Suddenly, the motion sensor on Eleanor's phone chimed, not for the archive door, but for the grounds. A camera feed popped up. A figure, dressed in dark clothes, was moving quickly through the oak alley, toward the old, dilapidated cottage, the very cottage by the creek that Nell's diary had mentioned. The nursery. Someone's out there, Eleanor said, her voice tight. They're not coming for the papers, Keira said, already moving toward the door. They're going to destroy the scene. The physical evidence. I'm calling the sheriff, Eleanor said. No time, Hannah said, her face set. They'll be gone before anyone gets here. The three women, the historian, the heiress, and the reverend exchanged a look. Without another word, they turned off the archive lights, locked the door, and stepped out into the thick, moonless Georgia night, heading toward the dark shape of the creek cottage and the intruder who wanted to erase the past once and for all. The night air was heavy with humidity and the deafening chorus of crickets and frogs. Keira, Eleanor, and Hannah moved quickly across the manicured lawn, the lights of the main house shrinking behind them. They entered the tunnel of ancient oaks, the Spanish moss brushing against them like ghostly fingers. Ahead, the outline of the old creek cottage materialized, the small, square structure of worn clapboard, half swallowed by ivy and shadow. A faint, bobbing light moved inside a flashlight. We should wait for the sheriff, Eleanor whispered, her breath short. If they torch it, we lose everything. Keira replied, her voice low and firm. Hannah, call 911. Give our location. Eleanor, stay back. Use your phone light and make noise if they come out. What are you going to do? Eleanor asked, fear widening her eyes. I'm going to remind them this is a crime scene, not their private property to destroy. Before they could argue, Keira broke from the cover of the trees and approached the cottage's sagging front porch. The door was already ajar. She pushed it open slowly. The beam of a powerful flashlight swung around, blinding her. Stop right there. A man's voice growled. It wasn't digitally altered. It was raw and panicked. Keira shielded her eyes. This is private property. You're trespassing on an active historical investigation. You don't know what you're messing with, the man said, lowering the light slightly. She could make him out now. Late 40s, strong build, wearing a dark jacket and work boots. He wasn't a professional thug. He was terrified. I know exactly what I'm messing with, Keira said, stepping inside. The air was thick with dust and decay. The flashlight beam swept across the room, revealing not a home, but a stark, institutional space. Remnants of small, crude bed frames lined the walls, a single, long table, a bookshelf with a few mold-eaten primers. This was the dormitory, the classroom, the nursery for Nell's Covenant children. The man held a red gasoline can in his other hand. You're a Whitlock, Keira stated, piecing it together. A distant one, not from the main line. someone whose family benefited from the network, someone whose inheritance is tied to this secret. His face, slick with sweat, confirmed it. You think you're bringing justice? You're bringing hellfire down on everyone. On her. He jerked his head toward outside, where Eleanor stood. On me. On people whose only crime was being born into this mess. Your crime isn't being born. Hannah's voice cut through the darkness from the doorway. She stepped in, phone held up, recording. Your crime is trying to burn the truth to keep your comfort. My grandmother was born here, in this room. What's your excuse? The man, faced with Hannah's implacable presence, seemed to deflate. The gas can slipped from his hand, thudding on the floorboards. I'm Carl Bishop. Alfred Bishop was my great-great-grandfather. We sold Magnolia Grove decades ago. But the money, the family trust, it's all from that time. If this gets out, sirens wailed in the distance, growing rapidly closer. It's already out, Mr. Bishop, Keira said. The DNA is out. The journals are scanned. Burning this place would just be another crime on top of the pile. Sheriff's deputies flooded the cottage minutes later. As Carl Bishop was read his rights, he looked at Eleanor. Tell the senator, I'm sorry. I tried.
Senator Grant Whitlock did not summon them to Washington or to a law office. He arrived at Silver Oak at dawn, his black SUV rolling up the drive like a hearse. He was every inch the statesman, silver-haired, tanned, with a jawline made for C-SPAN, and a handshake that was both firm and dismissive. He greeted Eleanor with a perfunctory kiss on the cheek, nodded coldly at Keira, and ignored Hannah completely. Eleanor, my dear, you've stirred up a hornet's nest with this project, he said, his voice a smooth baritone that didn't mask the steel beneath. He stood in the grand parlor, refusing to sit. The truth was already there, Uncle Grant. We just stopped ignoring it, Eleanor replied, standing straighter. The truth is a complex historical context, not a weapon for modern-day character assassination, he snapped, the facade cracking for a second. He turned his glare on Keira. Dr. Johnson, you were hired to create a genealogical report, not to instigate a media circus and criminal charges against a confused relative. Carl Bishop was attempting to destroy evidence, Senator. That's a crime in any century, Keira said evenly. He's a frightened man, protecting his family's name from salacious misinterpretation. The senator took a breath, composing himself. Here is what is going to happen. You will turn over all original documents, the diaries, the medical ledger, to the Foundation's legal team for authentication. You will halt all DNA analysis and public contact with purported descendants. You will draft a final report that acknowledges the complicated relationships of the period, without this inflammatory covenant speculation. He laid a checkbook on the side table. For your professionalism and your silence, the Foundation will donate $5 million to a charity of your choice, and your research firm will receive a generous severance. It was a classic move. Bury the truth, buy the silence, protect the institution. Keira looked at the checkbook, then at Hannah's stony face, then at Eleanor. Eleanor spoke first, her voice quiet but clear. No. The senator blinked. Eleanor, be reasonable. I am the chairwoman, Grant. You are an advisor. Dr. Johnson's contract stands. The documents stay with her. The report will be published. And we, she said, glancing at Keira and Hannah, will be holding a press conference next week to announce the discovery of the Silver Oak Covenant and the launch of a reparations initiative for its identified descendants. Senator Whitlock's face turned to marble. If you do that, you will destroy this family. You will destroy everything we've built. You will be ruinously sued for defamation and breach of contract. You will never work in this state again. His eyes locked on Keira. And you, Doctor, should watch your step. History is full of accidents. It was no longer a threat. It was a declaration of war. After he stormed out, the silence in the room was immense. He'll try to get an injunction to stop us, Keira said. He'll try to discredit you, Hannah added. Eleanor picked up the blank checkbook, tore it in half, and dropped it into a wastebasket. Then we go public before he can. We take control of the story, not with a dry report, but with the voices of the people it affected. She looked at Hannah. Reverend Mills, would you and Marcus Green be willing to speak, to tell your family's stories? Hannah nodded slowly, a fierce light in her eyes. It's time,